My name is Emma Tacky, and I am the Associate Director of Community Engagement for Catholic Mobilizing Network. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our panel discussion of the award-winning documentary, The Prison Within. Please, you are invited to keep your camera on for this event if you are able, so we can see your wonderful faces. Just a couple notes around housekeeping and for sharing our space here this evening. Please go ahead and use the chat feature if you have any questions related to tech. We have one of our CMN staff members, Caitlin Tully, who is handling tech, and her name is labeled with tech in her title. So please go ahead and reach out to her if you have any tech issues. There will be a portion of the evening for questions from the audience, and you can submit those questions for the panelists using the Q&A dialog box. And then this discussion will also be recorded, and a link will be sent to all participants who registered for the event. And if we can just go to that housekeeping slide quickly, Caitlin, so folks can see that as a visual reminder. Okay, thank you. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment and thank our co-sponsors that have helped make this event possible. We can go on to our co-sponsor event page slide here. A big thank you to the Catholic Diocese of San Diego here in California for co-sponsoring this event. And thank you to the California People of Faith working against the death penalty. And a thank you to the Roundtable Association of Catholic Diocesan Social Action Directors. They've all played a role in helping financially support this event and or promoting the event to their networks as well. So if you're joining from any of those three organizations, welcome, and we're so glad you're here as well. Welcome to anyone joining from Catholic Mobilizing Network or from the Prison Within community. At Catholic Mobilizing Network, our mission is to end the death penalty and promote restorative justice through education, advocacy, and prayer. And we seek to build a world where the principles of restorative justice, which are upholding dignity, building relationships, seeking healing, and enabling transformation, are at the heart of the legal system. As Pope Francis said in his encyclical entitled Fratelli Tutti in the fall of 2020, there is a need for paths of peace to heal open wounds. Peacemakers, men and women prepared to work boldly and creatively to initiate processes of healing and renewed encounter. And tonight, we have some peacemakers in our midst. We are thrilled for this evening's discussion of The Prison Within, which is available on a variety of platforms, including iTunes, Comcast, and other platforms you can see on their website, prisonwithin.org. Some of you here tonight may remember that back in October, CMN hosted, in collaboration with many co-sponsors, including the San Diego Diocese, a virtual conference about restorative justice. One of the sessions was a film discussion of The Prison Within, and we were so taken by the film and with the incredible work that was being done that we wanted to create an opportunity to highlight the film again within our community and beyond, which really the work here of this film and the producers and all involved show such outstanding examples of restorative justice and transformative encounters. So here we are several months later, and we're excited to have Leonard, Catherine, Aaron, Troy, and Sam be with us again to discuss their film. For those of you unfamiliar with this award-winning documentary, The Prison Within exposes the devastating impact that untreated trauma has on individuals and communities throughout the powerful stories of survivors of violent crimes and prisoners incarcerated for murder in San Quentin Prison. The prisoners and survivors participate in victim offender education groups, or VOEG for short. And I think if we can go on to the next slide, there we'll see an image of that can look like. An innovative restorative justice program enabling prisoners to discover how the trauma they've experienced contributed to their criminality and to understand the impact their crimes have on their victims. What The Prison Within shows us is that rebuilding and transformation looks like when we shift our sights toward human dignity and healing. We are so grateful to the producers for the care with which they bring that transformation to life on screen for us all to witness. Before we dive into the moderated discussion, let me first introduce Leonard Rubio. Leonard is the executive director of the Insight Prison Project, which was founded at San Quentin in 1997. IPP provides highly trained facilitators and creates a space with victim offender education groups that allows victims and incarcerated people an opportunity to work together, which dramatically aids in the healing process for everyone involved and enhances public safety by greatly reducing recidivism. IPP programs are now in 21 prisons and several reentry centers. Leonard, as the leader of IPP, I commend this incredible transformative work your organization is doing. And it feels right that you are moderating tonight's panel discussion because before you became the executive director of the IPP, you yourself were incarcerated at San Quentin, and you were in the second cohort at the facility. You later became a co-facilitator of this program on the inside, and you have such an incredible story to share. In many ways, you embody the very transformation and healing that the prison within brings to light. And I know your deep faith shaped your experience and transition. Leonard, can you share a bit about your journey here? And I will hand it off to you.
Thank you very much, Emma, and good evening, everybody. I was very fortunate I'll start with why I was incarcerated. At the age of 18, back in 1986, I unfortunately took the life of my girlfriend. Was eventually convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. One of the things I do want to share, usually we say the name of our victims when we speak about our crimes for accountability. Her family has specifically asked that I not use her name publicly, so that's why I will not be doing that this evening. While I was incarcerated, I wanted to start looking at everything that I could to understand what brought me to the point that I was willing to take the life of someone that I loved. And as I did that through the years, through various books and different programs that were offered in the prisons, I took probably close to 90 different programs, maybe more, during my 23 years. And in 2005, I was fortunate to be able to join the second cohort of the Victim Offender Education Group. We were just starting a restorative justice program at San Quentin that fortunately Troy was a part of. And we were looking at how do we get the message out about restorative justice within the institution, as well as within communities on the outside. And we had put together a symposium in January of 2005. And with the success of that, decided to create an interfaith roundtable. Part of that first symposium, we were able to have Rochelle Edwards, who founded the Victim Offender Education Group, and another one of the men from inside, come and share that, what Vogue was about within the symposium. It hadn't been discussed previously, it hadn't been announced. The first cohort had been limited only to a group of men that were participating in a program called Catargio, a weekly circle process group. When I was able to participate in the Vogue program, it really helped open my eyes to gain insight and understanding as to what I had done and better understand all the different causative factors that led to me committing my crime. And that's one of the beauties of this work, is that we really focus on accountability. Part of what we have to do in order to get to that accountability is create a safe space in the program where people are comfortable sharing the pain and the suffering that they've experienced and that they've caused. A lot of the work is focused on healing traumas. One of the things that you'll hear throughout the movie and throughout our curriculum is about the point that hurt people hurt people. And we don't say that as an excuse for the pain that we've caused. It's an understanding of what brought us to that point that we were willing to do whatever harm it is that we did. The flip side of that is also true, and that the healing work from this transformative program, as individuals begin healing themselves, they're able to heal the people that are around them. It's that ripple effect, just like with the pain, the ripple effect happens with the healing as well. That's one of the things that I love as the executive director, is to see so many of our graduates, many of whom I was in prison with, and ones that I am meeting now that they're coming home, and seeing the transformative work that they're doing out here in their communities, making true changes. Another big part of that, and I've been able to witness that with Sam and his family, is the healing that men and the women that take our program as well are able to share with their families, to be able to guide them in that healing process as well. So with that, I'm truly grateful to Aaron and Catherine, Massimo, and Troy was also one of the filmmakers as well. Everyone that played a part in getting this film out, to be able to talk about the work that happens within our victim offender education group, the message behind restorative justice. One of the things that we're facing in our country right now is the fact that the current criminal justice system just is not serving us. This whole idea from the 80s of lock them up and throw away the key has financially caused us tremendous harm, but it's also caused tremendous harm socially by the many lengthy sentences, the mandatory sentences, many of which make no moral sense whatsoever and are not helping to make our communities safer. With restorative justice, it's all about how do we restore the situation as much as we possibly can. And that's a lot easier when we're talking about minor crimes like property crimes and things like that. It's easy to go and repaint graffiti. It's easy to return property that has been stolen. The difficult things are when you're dealing with the work that we do, which is primarily with people who have been incarcerated for murder and other tremendous harms. We can't bring anyone back. And so it's not a matter of how do we bring them back, it's a matter of how do we return everyone impacted by the pain and suffering to as whole of a person as they can be again. We can't take the hurt away, we can't take the pain away, but we can help people heal and be able to find ways to move forward. That's what our work is about. That's why I have chosen to continue to try and get this work to as many people as we can. I'm grateful that this film has come out. It's helping to get the message out to other people. We offer trainings right now during the pandemic. We're offering virtual trainings so that we can find more people that will be able to facilitate these kind of groups and continue to do this work and get this message out. That to me is what is important. None of us are able to go into the prisons and rehabilitate any of the men or women that we serve. It's on each of them as individuals to rehabilitate themselves. We're only there to support them in the process and to share the curriculum that we know works. When you talk about one of the biggest things that the government uses when it talks about success or failure of the prison system is the recidivism rate. And the recidivism rate is near or over 50% here in California within 3 years of incarceration. But the men and women that have taken our programs and graduated and come home, it's less than 1%. So how do we get this message to more and more people so that they can find healing in their lives and then share that healing with their communities? That's what it is for me. That's what this work is about. And that's why I'm grateful that you're giving us this opportunity to share this tonight. With that, I think we wanted to go to the trailer. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Leonard. Yes, we are going to be showing the trailer here. There we go.
He, in cold blood, gunned down my husband and then stood over him and kept shooting.
I did come to prison because I did something terrible. I killed somebody.
I am only and just a murderer.
I was an instrument of destruction.
I am a conservative hardliner. I got the death penalty. I got what I wanted. Nothing changed. I didn't feel better. It didn't work.
Coming and saying Quentin though is actually what put everything in perspective.
It's really about being on a journey together to connect the dots of their lives that led to a crime, to walk deeply and profoundly in accountability.
I'm sorry for taking your son.
In the way that you allow survivors to come in and say what we need to say, I can't even begin to quantify how healing that has been for me. It's how this system should work.
Do you want him to remain on death row?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Hurt people, and we've been hurting each other forever. It's time for change.
So thank you very much for that short glimpse into the film and the power of what everyone is able to witness. I've happened to know Dion, who shared about her husband being murdered in the line of duty. She went from being a volunteer speaker to eventually being trained as a Voc facilitator and facilitating groups because of the transformation she was able to witness in people. That's the power of this work. So as we go further, I want to introduce our filmmakers and some of our graduates. And I will start with Catherine Hervey and allow her to introduce herself. She is, as I said, our primary filmmaker and has a tremendous background. I'll let her share that. But thank you so much, Catherine, for all that you've done.
Thank you, Leonard. It's nice to see you here. And thank you to everyone for coming. My name is Catherine Hervey, and I'm the director and producer of the film. And this film really came out, I would say, about 10, 15 years of my own experience as a Los Angeles public defender, a volunteer prison college instructor, and just numerous restorative justice contexts, both inside and outside of the prisons, working with survivors and people inside. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Catherine. Then we have our executive producer, Erin Kenway.
Hey everyone, I am executive producer, writer on The Prison Within. I became involved with the film after being introduced to Catherine from a mutual friend. And the second I heard what this film was about, I had to jump on and have jumped in with both feet, both hands, everything. It's an incredible journey that we have gotten to have together in terms of getting this film put together and go to the festivals and just having these incredible speaking opportunities like with you guys. My background, I'm an attorney by trade, although now I am full-time in filmmaking as a producer. I will be teaching a course at Seattle University School of Law on this documentary as the kind of the guiding principles around an interdisciplinary approach to our justice system. And I am excited to be able to participate in that as well. So with that, I'll kick it over to Troy.
All right. Hello, my name is Troy Williams. And I was actually inside the prison serving a life sentence when I had participated in Vogue, ultimately became a facilitator of Vogue. And Catherine came in here with all them cameras. And since I was like the San Quentin's resident filmmaker, I walked up to him and was like, what's your intentions on filming us? And I was inspired by what I heard her say, what I heard her talk about, and obviously inspired enough to participate in the film, to start helping in any way that I could from the inside. And then lo and behold, I was paroled, because at the time I didn't know when or if I would ever get out of prison. And ultimately I was paroled, and we began working together out here on some aspects of the film. So I'm just honored to be a part of it. I live for this work. I do it. I always say that I can't go back and undo things for myself, but I surely can present to remove some obstacles and roadblocks from other people headed in that direction. With that, I'll pass it.
Thank you, Troy. Honored to have you here as part of this. Now I want to welcome Sam Johnson. You need to unmute yourself, Sam.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Sam Johnson. I too was inside. I served 26 years on a 29 to life sentence. The thing that drew me to Vogue, Victim Offender Education Group, was my daughter when she was 6 years old. And when we would have visits and she would leave, and this time she grabbed my hand and she wanted me to go that direction, and we all cried. And I decided I needed to find out what was causing me to hurt my family, hurt myself, and hurt members of my community and the crime I committed. So it was important for me to find out what was happening with me. When all the psychologists and stuff I ever saw, Vogue was one thing that touched me deeply and helped me move in a positive direction. So I thank Vogue, I thank Catherine for coming in with the film crew and to getting our stories out to let people know that hurt people do hurt people, but heal people do heal. And I'm out here trying to heal as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Such a blessing to see you and Troy on this side doing all the work that you are.
Thank you.
With that, we want to move to the film discussion. And so the first question is going to be for Catherine. How would you describe the film for those who have not yet seen it?
Sure, thank you. So I always say that the film operates on two different levels. So the first level is that it follows a group of men inside the Vogue program, inside San Quentin, as well as survivors, and they come together to heal. Those survivors are facilitators inside, and also Dion Wilson, who we saw in the trailer. And the men are connecting the dots of their lives that led to their crime, while also taking full accountability for their actions. Really deep accountability. And simultaneously, it's also following the survivors on their own healing journey. And really the main one, as we saw in the trailer, was Dion Wilson. And I think what's really beautiful about her story is that, at the beginning of the film, she's very angry, understandably so, because her husband was murdered, and really, is vying for the death penalty for her husband. And he does get the death penalty. And then as she progresses through the film, she starts realizing in her heart and with herself that, perhaps the state-sanctioned death penalty, how different is that really from, the man who took the life of her husband? And that's really what begins her healing journey and really brings her into Insight Prison Project. And we bring her into the project, and she heals with the men that we've been following. And for me, though, the film also operates on a second level, which is The Prison Within, which is the title, The Prison Within, which is really a call to action for us here on the outside, that if we're really going to heal our systems, that this is a process of truth and reconciliation that begins within ourselves and in our own hearts. And as we watch the men and women in the film do this really hard, deep work of truth and reconciliation, that we can see ourselves also reflected in that and the work that we need to do. And it's not only, so then once we do that work on ourselves, then we can take it out into our culture and really do the work of truth and reconciliation that needs to happen in our culture that has really created the death penalty and our systems of mass incarceration in the first place.
Thank you, Catherine. And then for Aaron, how would you describe the film's message and why is it so timely with the current events in our country and around the world?
Well, The Prison Within challenges these us versus them tropes that are assigned to participants of the criminal justice system. And I say participants of the criminal justice system because it's not just the individuals who have committed the crime, it is the victims, it is their family, the community, the jurors, the judges, the attorneys that are involved. It impacts everyone. There's a study that came out that said, I believe there's 21 points of contact. And that doesn't include assuming that you have a jury for your case. So there's a lot of people impacted just by the story of events. We've all kind of been on this transformational journey over the last 14 months. And I kind of find that it's been this opportunity for a lot of us to look inside at what's going on in our hearts, our homes, our minds, reprioritizing where our values are. And I think that part of the way I would land the story now more than I would back in October, if you heard us speak then, is that kind of challenging this us versus them, this notion of this must be a binary ones and zeros kind of relationship isn't really true. I think we're kind of learning we're all in this pie formula and I did not do well in math. So please, if that is an epically terrible analogy, please give me some credit. But what we're doing here is creating these opportunities to learn from each other, to listen from each other, to love one another in a way that I don't think we've been able to do before. Restorative justice is really about achieving the same goal of justice for the victims, the individuals who committed the crime, and the community. It's all of us trying to achieve this level of justice. And that's what you're seeing now in the streets. That's what you're seeing when you see protests about different political opinions. But I also caution that this is a time where we need to think twice about labeling the others, those who think differently, who voted differently, who choose to have whatever it is that's different in their lives, because we need to learn from each other so that we can really understand what it's like to hold space. We don't need to understand what it's like to hold space. We actually need to hold the space, we need to hold the space for others in a way that allows us to break down those walls and really come together as a community, because the power's in the community. We have power together. It's not those who, are the singletons in whatever position. It's us as a community.
Thank you, Aaron. I know for me, as I shared earlier, this was one of the most impactful programs that I participated in. I wanted to ask, starting with Sam and Troy, but I also want to give Catherine an opportunity to share as well on why Vogue is so important and what about the process had the most impact on you. Would you like to start that off, Troy?
I was going to defer to my senior. I will though. Yeah, I love humor, everybody. So yeah, I'll say that for me, one of the things that always stand out that most every time I talk about going through the process of Vogue and I saw somebody else, what does it stand for? It stands for Victim Offenders Education Group. And one of the things I always talk about is the first time that I sat across from what we called a surrogate victims panel. And basically what that is that if you're incarcerated for a particular crime, you sit across from somebody who has been victimized or survived a particular similar situation. And I remember early on, people used to ask me, well, you know, like, how did you feel? Like what did you do, right? And the only thing I could ever, you know, I really never like really had like a real answer that like struck with my core. And I used to think, you know, about how like things affected me, and people would say, well, what do you think your victims went through? And I would be like, well, I don't know. I imagine they were scared, you know, but I really didn't fully grasp it. And I'm sitting on this panel. I remember speaking with the lady, and I saw how her being the victim of a robbery impacted her life in such a manner that it made her shrink and shrivel inward and sort of hide from people, hide from contact from people. Like I could clearly see, like I could feel it, how it affected her. It's hard to even give words to. And what I identified with is I was able, because of watching her, I was able to look within myself and actually realize that how earlier situations that I had been in life impacted me in a way where instead of me sort of hiding and running from people, I buffaloed out. Like my fear caused me to like become aggressive. That's the way I sought to protect myself. So rather than me be in fear and go hide, I really got aggressive outwardly as a way of me trying to protect myself. And I think that was one of the first times that I really realized how much so that my crime actually not only just impacted the victims, you know, of my case, like how they had to change up their whole life, you know, like they just had to change up everything about what they had been through in life, because the next time that they watch somebody, now we're walking around, we're living in this deep sense of fear. And so, yeah, I think that was, I hope people understanding what I'm saying, because it really impacted me in a way, that understanding impacted me in a way in such a way that it gave me like some insight into my own life as well.
Thank you, Troy. This is Sam. So what was the most important part of Vogue for you, and why do you think it's so important that people have an opportunity to participate in Vogue?
The most important part of Vogue is the group chemistry, the people who were there, the commitment to be honest with each other, keep everything in total confidentiality so a person can open up, so I could open up. And what really opened me up was the timeline, when I can remember from 6 years old until 18, how my father tried to kill my mom on numerous occasions and beat me a whole lot. And what effect that had on me. And then what deeply touched me was the letter, writing the letter of forgiveness when you participate in the program. And I was able to forgive my father, even though my father died. That was so important for me. And I never got a chance to tell him, you know, how much I loved him and forgave him because he died. And I was still in prison with it. I met him, you know, I went to Detroit to see him when he was dying of cancer. From 250 pounds, we're 240 pounds, and I buried my father when 73 pounds. And my mom sent me to go get him. And all of that had an effect on me in my life. And sitting in Vogue, I got to look at the monster that was and then passed on, and then look at me becoming the monster, the thing I hated the most, to the point where I took someone's life. And what caused a person to do that? You know, the pain of being beaten with an extension cord from top to bottom, when my dad scarred me with X's and O's and upside down smiles and frowns, you know, and me pulling a gun on my father, shooting it in the ground behind his back because he wanted to get a gun to shoot me. All of the trauma, the pain, and I still have a lot of unmet needs from childhood, but I'm dealing with it. But Vogue brought out a lot. I got to participate in things at home and whole healing circles and program with my family to get them to talk. My daughter, my son, my family meant the world to me. And to understand the things that cause us to do what we do, you know, and thinking we need to exact revenge because nobody's gonna beat on me no more like that, which I told myself, got a gun in my hand, and I took someone's life, a young man's life that had a future. And why? I mean, why? Why did I go out with the anger to take things from people because I didn't have? You know, scripturally saying, God said, I'll supply all your needs. But see, he did supply all my needs, but I was after wants. And you have to identify your wants from your need. And that's what I needed to do. I need to be a part of society, not a want. I need to love my children and forgive myself. The letter of forgiveness I wrote to my father and to me, because I didn't have a childhood. I had to grow up to be a man to protect my mom. So I thought from my father. I bust my father in the head when he was choking my mom. I did so many things. And it carried on when I came to California to where I took a man's life. Without Vogue, I would never understand the reason why, because it was a trusting circle. I didn't feel that I would be betrayed talking in that circle. So I was able to open up. And I had, oh Lord, I gotta remember his name. He was the first white man I saw cry with me. You know, Jack Dyson, he was a facilitator. And I love Jack. I love him for that. To actually cry with me, a black man, a black person in prison, sentenced to 29 to life. And he saw me as a person, not as a number. I remember the number H20162. I always remember that number because I don't want to forget about it, because I don't want to ever do something that was so horrible like I did. I come home to love my family, love my community, and I serve my community proudly for the 4 years I've been out. And I will continue to serve my community by housing people coming out of prison so they won't have to fall back into that trap of being homeless and feeling they have to steal and rob people. We give them the opportunity like God gave me the opportunity. So I thank you for this opportunity tonight. The voice my concern, the voice my love for humanity, and, you know, just say how sorry I was for what I've done. You know, and wasn't allowed to say that, but I committed a crime that wasn't needed. It really wasn't. So God has given me the opportunity, spared my life, brought me home, and I will live and love for the rest of my life and be of service all the days of my life while I live. Thank you. Thank you, Vogue. Thank you, Leonard. Thank you for the Inside Prison Project, Catherine, and everyone on this Zoom link. I pray that what I've said has touched you in any way, in some way. Maybe you have issue with your family member or loved one. Sit and talk. I didn't get that. My dad just told us to go outside and be a man, you know, learn from the streets. But my mom was the one who loved me and said, love people. But I was overshadowed by the toughness, that false identity of a man is shed and cry. When you get a chance, cry. I cry a lot now because it's healing. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for your honesty and your openness. One of the things that, for me, really speaks to the power of the Vogue curriculum. One of the first assignments that we ask people to do after we build that safe container where people can be trusted is we ask people to write a crime impact statement and share that with the group. And the reality is, in our current criminal justice system, the truth very seldom ever comes out. There's 98% of all charges end up in a plea bargain. And when you're dealing with a trial, you have a district attorney that's trying to get the highest conviction they can, and a defense attorney trying to get an acquittal or the lowest conviction. Again, the truth seldom comes out. And so we ask people, what happened the day of the crime? What was the impact on the victim's family, your community, your family? What was the impact on you? And one of the questions that is often the first time anyone has ever thought of when they come to group, what do you need for your own personal healing? Those are some powerful questions to ask people to share, because typically it's the worst moment of their life. And yet we ask them to delve into that, to get to the heart of it, so that they understand what brought them to that point, and then be able to find the tools so that we don't do that kind of harm again. So with that, I wanted to ask Catherine, why did you feel this Vogue process was so important that you wanted to make sure it was filmed?
So to me, what's so beautiful about the Vogue process is that it highlights accountability, that accountability is a really big part of it. I think that that's something that's really missing in our society, not only in the criminal justice system, but, you know, amongst us, amongst our families, amongst us here in society. But the way that I found the Vogue program was through Jamie Carroll, who's in the film. And I had found her story online, and I was so moved by it, because from the very beginning, I had the concept of the prison within, that we're all in these prisons that we're trying to get out of. And I knew that it had to include both people on inside and survivors on the outside. And I read her story, and she, you know, she's a victim of a horrendous crime. She was kidnapped and repeatedly sexually assaulted as a young girl, Everyone can hear me, right? There's this thing coming up to me telling me to unmute myself. Okay, thank you. And, you know, she didn't heal. It took her years and years and years, you know, 30 years of therapy, 30 years of rape crisis groups, and that she herself was starting to feel, you know, the trauma and the violence really coming up within her because of this horrible crime that was committed against her. And she's, you know, she said, I get it. Like, I get it. I get how people can commit crimes. I get that this violence rising in me because of the trauma I experienced is maybe makes me not that different from the men who had committed this crime against me. And I thought that right there is so beautiful and so vulnerable and so honest, and where so many of us are really not willing to go. And so I contacted Jamie, and Jamie at that point had already become a Vogue facilitator, because after her kind of coming to this realization is when she went into the prison. I don't think it was San Quentin, but she went into the prison and sat in circle with men, just like everyone here has been describing. And that was when her true healing began, because she said, I was finally with people who knew crime and violence and could reflect back to her what she really needed to hear to start healing. So, you know, and just there's so many beautiful elements in Vogue. It was such an honor to go in and be a witness to these circles, you know, with my camera, and to be trusted to go in and to really experience the vulnerability and the accountability from the men that we so rarely see on the outside. It's just, it's rare. It's very, very rare. And I think the curriculum of Vogue is like really what brings that out, like they were saying, to contain that, to create that self-container, that safe container.
Thank you, Catherine. One of the questions that I've seen in the chat and that we had was, how does restorative justice align with one's faith? For me, I've shared a little bit about that, being raised Catholic and still a practicing Catholic. I was wondering if Troy or Sam would like to share their experience of the Vogue program and how that how restorative justice aligns with your spiritual practice. And also acknowledging that the program itself is a secular program, and we welcome everyone, regardless of their spiritual practice, to participate. And that individual's spiritual practice does come out in doing this work.
For me, like you said, the circle, we had every belief. Everyone had their own belief, and it wasn't cross, it wasn't challenged. It was about you finding yourself, your truth. Your spiritual belief is your spiritual belief. And whatever works in your heart and you believe in, then you believe in that. But the work was all about being accountable. My faith base is believe on forgiveness. You know, I claim Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I went astray, but my faith became stronger because the truth shall set you free. And in the circle, it's all about the truth. It's about honesty. It's about dealing with the pain, the suffering, like Christ did. He said, we shall go through pain. It won't be an easy walk. But no one questioned my faith because we was all in that circle. We was brothers. The outside facilitators were sisters. We all were one, trying to heal one another. And that's what Christ came to die for us, to bridge the gap between humanity and God, and my belief. And there was no challenge, like I said, no challenge at all to other people's faith. We became closer. We shared about each other's faith. We trust that process. We trust the process to heal the pain that was deep within, unmet needs, and everything we addressed. So I thank God for Vogue. There's no discrimination. We were all different races, you know, different belief, different gender identity in prison, and we just loved one another. We embraced one another. We hugged one another. And most important, we cried with one another as we went through our transformation. So I just love Vogue for not having anything really that discriminates against a person. It's a healing circle. And healing circle means healing circle. There's nothing to cause pain in those healing circles but what you address and what you bring out to be stronger. Thank you. I'll turn it over to my junior senior, Troy.
Thank you, Sam. All you, Troy.
Yeah. So, I mean, at its core, my spiritual practices, you know, I came in and I studied religion. You know, I went to Catholic school as a young person. You know, I practiced as a Muslim. Like I've went through the gamut of religion, and my spiritual practices led me back to ancient African religion. And one of the core beliefs for me and the core principles is that I am not allowed to be at odds with anyone else in humanity. And understanding how the spirit works within me, I think has been core to me. I also wanted to, someone had put in the chat about how we can, that our thoughts on how we can use restorative justice in, you know, race related crimes. And I would love, even though, you know, this Vogue program started with us looking at, you know, the impact of our, you know, crimes of being incarcerated. I think what the film actually showed is what we all understand in the Vogue community, is that the harm caused is not just something labeled criminal. Oftentimes, you know, the harm that happened to me or happened to many of us early in life, where we because of our sentence, we were not considered like, or, you know, we were not honored or blessed with the title to be considered a victim of a crime. It still affected us. That harm affected us in such a deep way. And so when we start talking about race crimes or race-related issues, you know, the things that happen is not just around or after something has been considered like criminal. There's a lot of things that happen to me. And this is, you know, Sam, me just having known Sam for so long and knowing his story as well, there's a lot of things that happened around race early on in our lives that led us to feel hopeless and led us to feel certain kind of ways that impacted our lives in such a way that we turned that on to others and impacted other people's lives. So I'm saying that all to say that when we start looking at, you know, solution, the solution is not just to go to communities that, you know, have been disenfranchised or just impacted, because the people who are not in those communities are also like doing harm and causing harm. And if we don't go to everywhere where people are hurting, then we're not going to really get to the root like of the problem. So I just wanted to echo that, is that, you know, race relations is, you know, that is the center of the beginning of this country. And so, and it's still, stuff is still going on. I mean, we're watching the news, we're watching everything. We know people in our lives. And so I think that the work that needs to be done is not just after a criminal act, but it's sometimes around things that are even considered legal that need to be addressed, because that hopelessness permeates throughout our community and it impacts us all, because it has us thinking that we're not connected the way that we are connected back to our spiritual connection.
Thank you, Troy. Catherine and Aaron, I'd like to hear from you as to how you feel the Prison Within and programs like those that IPP offers, the Vogue program, can be used to shift the culture of how we address harm.
I think dovetailing off of what Troy just so eloquently said, to me, I kind of obviously come from a different background, did experience harm. I am a rape survivor myself. I went through a lot of bullying and traumas as a child, and all those things impacted me. But, you know, to change the future, we need to really look at fixing the system and cure the pain that we're all experiencing, not ignore it, you know, but hold space for it. And that trauma and anger we feel towards the very actors who are causing the suffering. And we can give an example with the criminal justice system. It's causing a lot of pain and trauma and harm in others. It is broken. We acknowledge that it is broken. But if we also hold so much hatred against the system, that is counterproductive. And I think restorative justice and this model of transformation, what's so important is that we also need to look at this form of suffering as well, not just individual harm that we've experienced or that we've committed, but that we also need to look at the systemic issues. Race relations is a massive issue. This is a country founded essentially on racist ideology, on white supremacy. It is something that's permeating in our culture day in and day out. But we, instead of looking at thinking, fill in the blank group that is bad and I hate these people, we need to start thinking about how we can heal together and redirect what the truth is, so that, as Brenda, you made a beautiful comment, and I'm going to quote you here: children learn what they live, then they grow up and live what they learned. And so we need to do this in our community, not teach hate in a way that is talking about how you are, it's never going to change, because if we do this collectively, we actually can change. There is power in numbers. There is power in the people in really creating systemic change. And so I think that that's one way we can go about it. I think there's 1,000 other ways too. Unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of nuances that we don't, that we can't cover. We don't have time here. And so I don't want to be flippant and think, oh, I've solved the problem. Like, no, this isn't a savior moment. This is just a realization that we also have to remember that if we hold anger towards the systemic injustice institutions, then we're also not going to make much progress. And so that's something I would, as someone who actually has quit law because I'm so frustrated with the system, I have also had to learn to heal that frustration and pain.
Thank you, Erin. I know we want to get to some questions. I don't know if you want to try and respond to that real quick, Catherine, or if you want to get to the questions.
You know, I'll just say real quick that it starts within. It starts with us individually. You know, I have no business thinking that I know how to fix any system or any sort of systemic racism until I've looked at myself and my life and how I'm really complicit in this. And to me, that's the message of the film, is that we see the men and women doing this. They are not complicit. They're going in before they go out.
100%.
Thank you. I know we could go on and on, but we also want to honor the time that has been allocated for this. And I know we've had a couple of questions. One question from Michaela for Sam was asking if you were able to speak with the young man's family. You're on mute, Sam.
Unmute. Okay. No, with the present prison system, I am not allowed to contact them or go visit a gravesite or anything. Even though I'm off of parole now, I don't know how that works. But I'm instructed to stay away from the family of my victim and the surviving family members or anyone related to them. And it's a sad thing, because I would like, a lot of people who want answers, and I'm willing to sit and I'm willing to talk and let them know what I was going through, not making excuses or anything to ease the pain or whatever. What I did was wrong. It was horrible, and I own that, and I'm not gonna cover it up or make it smooth or whatever. I did something that wasn't godly, and I would like to sit with one of the family or someone who just want to know why. You know, some people want that, and I'm willing to do that if the family would allow me to, and if we needed a mediator, Vote could be there. And I'm opening myself up for that, because they have to heal the way they have to heal, and have me giving them answers and stuff, or them I'm sitting across from them and they're cussing me out. It's okay. I accept that. I've done work on my heart. I had a stony heart. God gave me a soft heart now. And I would love, honest to God, I would love to sit and talk and be accused or called whatever for that person to get healing within themselves. That's where I stand on that. But I would love to, but I'm not allowed to. Unless the family said yes and we get a mediator, I would contact Mr. Rubio for that session with the family. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Sam.
Mm-hmm. And then,
yes, Troy.
I just want, somebody had asked in the chat room a minute ago about Jamie. Jamie's last name was Curl. And just briefly, you know, she was the kind of person who called you on your stuff in a way that made you feel loved. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best way I can put it about Jamie. Very insightful, very loving, and like we all were so just honored to have known her.
Most definitely. There was also a question about Dion. And I've known Dion for quite a while and was fortunate that after she had experienced the surrogate survivor panel at the end of one of the Vogue sessions, that is one of the places that she found a tremendous amount of healing for herself. From that, she then chose to take the Vogue trainings to become a facilitator. And she even became one of the members of the board of directors for the Insight Prison Project. And so that has been a process of helping her to find healing within her life. And in that process has also helped find healing for dozens of men inside of San Quentin that were able to meet her and experience what she had.
Absolutely. And that's a very important point, that for those, I saw a lot of people in the chat room about how you can start Vogue or how you can contribute. Be very conscious that starting the Vogue or coming to Vogue is not just about helping somebody across that sits across from you, but you have to be able to do your work. Jamie helped so many men out because she modeled what it looked like to do your work. And you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to model what it looks like to do that deep core internal reflection. And if you're not willing to do that internal reflection for yourself, trust me, it's not going to work with guys on the inside, because we're very adapted to people giving us stuff that they don't use.
That is a tremendous point. I'm so grateful you brought that up, Troy, because it is a matter of people have to do their own work. If they come in and they're trying to dance around their own issues, they haven't dealt with their own traumas,
we will call you
causing more pain.
And that's why we have to go and do the work and look inside ourselves, heal our pain and anger, and then try and look at how we can then be that model for others and create this incredible opportunity for change. I mean, that's how we're going to create this systemic change, is when we as a community start to change and live the very lessons that we're projecting onto others. We're spending a lot of time pointing fingers in this country right now, and we need to be pointing them this direction.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say, I know Leonard like, let's go. But the last thing I'm just excited about this. I'm excited about people helping, and I'm excited about people doing the work, you know, and you don't, nobody's coming to the table perfect. We're all coming to the table flawed. And when you flaw, you make a mistake, you own it. And that's the modeling that needs to happen.
Definitely. Thank you, Troy. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up. The one thing that I do want to share, that there's been a lot of questions about being able to find out more about Vogue. Please visit our website, insightprisonproject.org, or email us at info@insightprisonproject.org, and we will get you more information about our victim offender education group, as well as the facilitator trainings that we offer. We have a phase 1 training coming up at the beginning of June that we still have about 5 spots available. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Catherine, Aaron, Sam, Troy. I love and respect each one of you, and I'm grateful for this work.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you everyone for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And please,
Thank you.
I'm going to do a last minute plug for the film. You know, everyone, I've been reading your comments and the impact it's had on you. I hope you share that with others. We aren't going to get this message, and we aren't going to, I mean, there's such a safe space in film. People can really process and feel these things. And so I really, really think it's important that we're sharing it with others. Social media, newsletters, please. We'll do speaking engagements if you want. You can pick who you want to speak. You know, just reach out. I put our information in the chat. You can also find it on the website. It's a small team. Catherine and I will respond personally. So we don't have like anyone like assistants or anything helping us. So, you know, be patient if it takes some time, but please, you know, we have to get this message out there. These stories need to be told, and we all need to start looking at transformation.
Definitely.
and living. the
Thank you,
peace.
Aaron.
Yeah, God
Emma?
bless everyone.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, everyone, thank you so much. Leonard, Troy, Sam, Catherine, and Aaron, not only for your time here tonight and the enthusiasm with which you offered your story and shared about the program and the film, but for your willingness to be vulnerable and share your personal stories as well. We are so grateful. And again, yes, folks, if you have not seen the film yet, we highly, highly encourage you to watch it. Again, visit theprisonwithin.org for your streaming options, and then to contact the Insight Prison Project for more information. Of course, go to insightprison.org or email info@insightprisonproject.org. Again, thank you to our co-sponsors, the Catholic Diocese of San Diego, California People of Faith Working Against the Death Penalty, and the Roundtable Association of Catholic Diocesan Social Action Directors. Thank you to our audience for your engagement and your questions. And I know we could have spent another hour just discussing the questions and the engagement within the chat. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, we will end for our evening discussion. And again, thank you everyone. So grateful for the community here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Good night, everybody. God bless. Thank you.
God bless.